Baroness Bennett of Manor Castle.
My Lords, it's a great pleasure to follow the noble Baroness Lady Foulkes, a fellow member of the APPG on horticulture, reflecting some of our shared interests. And I thank the noble Lord the Minister for his detailed introduction to these statutory instruments. He made very clear the complexity of what we're dealing with here. It's clear we are very far from the frictionless trade that we were sometimes implausibly promised by the government. And indeed, the noble Lord Villamoria referred to some of the difficulties being encountered now on the border. So one of the questions I'd like to begin with is to ask the noble Lord the Minister that these, referring to the official controls, animal feed and food, plant health regulations, that they were made on the 21st of December and laid down on the 22nd of December. Can the noble Lord the Minister make it clear how well these are being communicated to small businesses, how well these are being communicated to academics, to people who have a real interest in this area, what steps the government is taking to make sure people understand what's actually going on, people who don't have time to spend their entire days focusing on the on what's happening with the fine details of statutory instruments. Now, I pay tribute to Friends of the Earth, who prepared two excellent briefings on these statutory instruments, which I rely on quite heavily. And relying on that, I particularly have a question about the use of the negative statutory instrument process in terms of Regulation 2, which allows regulations on special import conditions on animal and related products, and Regulation 13, which gives the Secretary of State and Welsh ministers special powers to make regulations concerning meat and bivalve production by a negative statutory instrument. Now, it appears that in the European Commission, these similar procedures operate in a much more democratic way. So I wonder if the noble Lord the Minister comment on how this squares with the taking back control agenda if Parliament has less oversight than we saw in Europe. I also wish to refer to the noble Lord Rooker referred to the issue about the European Union reference laboratory for animal proteins in feedstuffs. And really, I'd like some reassurance from the Minister that there is going to be continual ongoing skill sharing, knowledge sharing, that we have a real sense that we are still right up with the cutting edge, contributing to the cutting edge, cooperation being obviously much more useful than competition. Now, finally, I come to the draft, to the Plant Health Amendment Regulations 2020. And again, my question relates to transparency and openness. Now, as both the noble Lord Rooker and the Earl of Caithness referred to, there's a question about the openness, the reporting of the proceedings of the UK Plant Health Risk Group, both minutes and one would hope agendas. And this is something which the comparable EU body, the Standing Committee on Plants, Animals, Foods and Feed, does do with commendable regularity and openness. In fact, it strikes me that given I'm sure all of these meetings are now being conducted, as most of us in your Lordship's house are now operating by teleconferencing, I can see no reason why those meetings should not indeed be broadcast so that anyone of interest, and there is of course a great deal of interest in issues around plant diseases, invasive species, diseases like Xylella, and indeed as the noble Lord Clark of Windermere referred to, the issues about antibiotic resistance and the risk of importing antibiotic resistance or indeed antibiotic tainted meat. If the noble Lord the Minister has considered whether those meetings of the Plant Health Risk Group could be fully conducted in public by means of Zoom or similar, so available to everyone. Thank you, my Lords.